I'm Blythe. I'm an architect, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about what I do. So most people will probably realize that the thing about being an architect is that most people, we all sort of recognize the places that we're in, and we all have an opinion about the places and the buildings that we live in. So people always ask me, what's it like to be an architect? And I think that a lot of times it's because people at one point or another wanted to be architects. So if they have a chance, I'll tell them what I do. And a lot of times I say, well, I don't really know what it's like to be an architect, but because I'm not sure that I'm really a normal architect. But I show them this napkin sketch that a friend of mine did that shows the city on one side and a hammer on the other. And regular architects, or what I imagine to be regular architects, generally work in a very narrow piece of that continuum. And a lot of the projects that I try to do are either on one side or the other. And I've found in my experience that it kind of circles back on itself. And so the big picture of the city and the really small picture of the hammer generally come back to each other. The hammer is a very detailed image, and how you and how that works into architecture is in a number of ways. This is the house called the Butterfly House that I had nothing to do with. But it's basically a project that has as its core that everyone deserves good design. And so it's very detail oriented in terms of, well, I'll skip to that. This is the railing at our office, and also on the hammer side of the continuum. This is a piece that had a whole pile of trash that we grabbed, and we cut it all up and we put it into a frame, and my coworker put it together, and he and I installed it in our office. And then in the bigger scheme of things, I do houses, and this is a house that was done to be a habitat prototype. And the idea is a very simple, very concise, very detailed idea that you could build a traditional, conventional house that's more efficient than a normal house without it being any more expensive. And then some of the work that I do is for very individual clients, and this is also in that very detailed end of the continuum, where I try to do a piece of work that's minimal, that conveys an idea, and is highly communicative. I had another client who's actually here now, trying to find a tenant for a space, and we ended up doing this drawing that was a layer of all kinds of pieces of information, that after an hour of that drawing, we handed to the contractor and said, could you please tell us what this costs? It looks like it's almost like a napkin sketch. Then moving over to the other side of the continuum, I get really interested in kind of the big picture. And so on one side of the coin are the very highly detailed things that I try to do. And then on the other are the big picture things, where you step back and you sort of look at the big city. But the continuing motif that goes from both sides is that it's for everyone. So where the habitat section, the habitat drawing, the railing, the work for the client are meant to be to provide design for every person, the other end of the spectrum is to design a city that's healthy and sustainable that is also for every person. And so another thing that I try to do is stay involved with students. A group of students came and presented last night, and one of whom had this incredible idea of creating a Chattanooga Central Park. Well, now
we love that idea.
Well, Matt fixed this one. When I was looking over my slides, I realized this was sideways, and so I had a little cute thing to say, but he fixed it and made it not sideways. Thanks, Matt.
What was the cute thing?
Well, it wasn't that cute. And so one of the things I look for when I look at urban design, and I skipped over that slide, the big picture of the city is sort of a, how do you make sure that the public spaces are accessible and healthy and vibrant for everyone? And one of the things that I try to do is encourage the making of our public spaces to encourage as much different kinds of things that could possibly go on as possible. And a lot of times I look back at these old slides that I get out of these books. I don't know if you've seen these things. There's a series of books called Yesterday and Today, and it's old photographs paired with current photographs, and most of the current photographs are from the 1960s. And it's incredible what they show is that slide previously is all the kinds of things going on. It's amazing that somebody didn't get hit by a car. But that's a real rich, vibrant space. And over the last 20 or 30 years, we've kind of done that. We've recreated this environment. And so places like the Walnut Street Bridge are places where you can interact with all kinds of different people and have spontaneous interactions with people and doing all kinds of different things. And you just saw the mall overlaid over downtown. I won't say much about it. Again, the big picture. I like to look at big images of the big picture. And the thing about going back to that drawing of the hammer on one side and the city on the other is that a lot of times we're asked to do a very small piece of that. And there's not really any client that walks in the door and says, I want you to hover above the city and imagine the big picture and we want you to design the city. You don't really get to do that. So I try to pick and choose where I can have some influence. And then back to Chattanooga, we've done a great job in the last 30 years of trying to rebuild a place where you can have a spontaneous interaction with different people in the city. So how do we get these people back? This is an image from, I believe it's 9th Street in Chattanooga, the old Rogers movie theater. And I'm not really sure how to do that, but I think there's some clues. Who needs this thing? So getting back to the details, maybe the answer is to build more crystals. Again, the continuum here, is this a big picture idea of how to build the city, or is this a detail idea of how to build a crystal? And then, since this is PechaKucha and we show our work, this is also a nice place where I spent about 3 hours of a day several years ago doing a little sketch that is also at one side a detail sketch on the hammer, and on the other it's a great place to be, because if it wasn't, I wouldn't have sat there for that long a time and drawn this book. Thank you.